Hey, mamas, welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Small Biz Mama. My name's Kristen Ingram, and today we are going to talk about how to make your service-based business stand out from the crowd. And listen, this is really easy stuff. Like, I think a lot of people think that, they need to, make sure that they're really dressed up all the time and wear makeup and be out there and be, really present. And honestly, I think, and recently I'll tell you, I've just been hearing some horror stories about bookkeepers and tax preparers and just service providers in general, frankly, who are out there, who are doing all the things, who are on the social media, who are making a big splash, and then you sign with them and the work isn't great, it's not getting done on time, the level of communication is not good. And so what I really want you to spend a lot of time focusing on is the client experience when you sign a client. Because I will tell you that one like super happy client is worth more than like all the social media in the whole world, because that client is going to tell everybody about you. And so I think that, there are a lot of courses out there that spend so much time focusing on the acquisition of clients that they're not spending enough time talking about how to actually service those clients once you have them. So let's talk a little bit today about making your service-based business stand out from the crowd by providing awesome customer service. So first off, I want you to think about what the initial contact process looks like. So when somebody reaches out to you via social media, via email, via your website, whatever that contact is, that initial contact, which typically it's digital, okay? I would say probably 95% of my initial contacts right now are coming through written channels. So they're coming through my DMs on Facebook, my DMs on IG, my email, Voxer sometimes if they're being introduced to me from someone else. But they're typically, they're coming through written channels. The other like 5% are people that actually meet in person. They go, "Oh, you're Kristen. I want to talk to you," and then we end up chatting digital channels. So what does that interaction with you, that initial interaction, look like? Because I think that sets the tone for the rest of the relationship. So I want you to have a plan that when somebody reaches out to you and says, "I'd like more information," what does that process look like? And so in bookkeeper training school, we teach that process should be having booking software that you can use Calendly, you can use Acuity, you can use Book Like a Boss, you can use anything you want, but have something so that people can book an appointment with you automatically. This whole like going back and forth thing, and I'll tell you, I'm not always great with this because my schedule is kind of wonky. Having a very smooth process for people to book with you is super, super important. And so even if you don't have a piece of software, what I would do is I would write back and say, "Here are 3 times that I have available next week. Do any of those times work for you?" And so at least you're not saying like, "Okay, so what days are you available? Are you available these times?" Let's try to minimize the back and forth, okay? But really having booking software that works well is a great way to do that. And if you're worried about, "Well, I've got appointments and I've got things to change and my weeks aren't always the same," all of these pieces of software are going to connect to your calendar. So if you have a Google Calendar and you put everything in there, it's going to check your Google Calendar first to make sure that that time is actually open. And I know we use Book Like a Boss I have like 6 different calendars hooked up to it. So that way, if Jeff has an appointment, I don't have appointments over that. If Eric has an appointment, if, I've got meetings with my team members, like we have all of the calendars all hooked up. So that way, everything, it checks everything before somebody books an appointment with me. So really, really important that you have something in place. Now, I would also make sure you know what you're going to talk about on that initial call. And I always recommend that my bookkeepers, and as a service provider, you should do this, make sure that you have a questionnaire that you send out in advance. Because here's the thing, if you're going to hop on a call with somebody for like 15 minutes, I want you to use that 15 minutes getting to know the person so that you're able to be comfortable with sending them a proposal. So if you're spending that entire time going, okay, so do you have an S Corp or do you have an LLC? What kind of bookkeeping? How many bank accounts do you have? What does the project look like? Like if you're spending all this time asking those questions, then you're going to be so focused on gathering that information that you're not going to be focused on, oh, do you like this person? Are there any flags with this person that are going off for you? And so I think that it is really important for you to focus on getting to know the person so that way you can feel good about accepting this engagement or not accepting the engagement. Okay. So what does that process look like? Do you have a questionnaire you send out in advance to get information? What are you going to talk about on that call? Okay. And if you're in bookkeeper training school, we talk about all this stuff in bookkeeper training school. Okay. Then what does your proposal process look like? So how do you send out a proposal? Are you going to send it out just as an email? And then if they accept it, you send your contract. Do you just send out, do you have a discussion on another call? What does that process look like for you? Okay. Then what does the contract look like? Okay. Always listen, as a service provider, always, always, always have a contract. And we will do, I'm not an attorney, but I will do a future episode on contracts and some things that you want to make sure you cover in your contract so that you don't get burned. Okay. So we'll talk about that in a future episode. I just wrote it down so that way I don't forget. Okay. Always write down important things. Okay. Or else you're going to forget. I know I have mom brain half the time. So for me to remember, what I want to do a podcast episode on, got to write it down. Okay. So what does your contract process look like? Right. So how are you going to have them sign the contract? And then what does your first payment process look like? So you're probably going to send them an invoice. If you're a bookkeeper, you're going to send them an invoice out of QuickBooks. You're going to get them set up on auto pay so that it's easy to pay you on a monthly basis as you're doing the work. And then what does your onboarding process look like? Okay, so when you are onboarding a new client, what does that process look like? Now, I really recommend that when you're going through this process, you create a list of all of the documents that you're going to need from the client. You send that request, and it's really cool because in QuickBooks, you can actually do that directly through QuickBooks now, which is pretty awesome. But once you send that request, I would then book a meeting. So here's the document request. I need the documents by this date. And then I need you to book your onboarding meeting. The onboarding meeting is probably going to be about 30 minutes long. Explain to them kind of what you're going to do during the onboarding meeting. The onboarding meeting is really to make sure that you have access to everything you need in order to be able to do the work. Okay, so lots of service providers, you're going to need access to passwords and usernames. I'd recommend using a password vault for those things. If you're a bookkeeper, you want to make sure that all of the accounts are connected, or that you have your own access so that you can connect the accounts. But again, it's just kind of make sure that like everything's going to run smoothly. Because I will tell you, like, especially in bookkeeping, with changes to third-party authentication, and that's when, like, when you log into your bank and it's like, oh, we need to send you a text, or we need to send you an email, or we need to send you a thing. That's made our life a lot harder as bookkeepers. So, looking at, if you know the list of the banks that they're using, you can reach out to the banks and say, hey, listen, can my client just add me as my own user? Or can they add, how can we get this so that I can do the bookkeeping for my client? And sometimes banks are really, really helpful. If you get to their tech support portion, right, the part that actually handles the online banking, they're usually super helpful. So what does that onboarding call look like? Okay. And then I want you to have a how I work document that you send to your clients. And I would send this with the contract or with their proposal, you decide. But the goal of that is to say how your client can communicate with you, what they can expect from you, when the work will typically be done during the month, the hours that you generally are available for contact. If they want to have a meeting with you, how do they schedule that meeting and how much does it cost? If it's not included in your proposal. Just general things. So for example, like, if you don't want people to contact you on your IMs, right? Which that's one thing, like I tell people in bookkeeper training school, do not contact me via IM on my personal account. Because that's my place. And sometimes I go on Facebook when I don't want to, when I'm not doing other things. And I know that people sometimes get frustrated because like our support is closed over the weekend, because I believe that my team needs time when we're not working. Go figure. And so sometimes people are like, no, I need to talk to somebody. It's Saturday. I'm like, okay, well then maybe the Facebook group can help you. You can try resetting your password. We have a very comprehensive autoresponder that goes out. So if you contact support during non-business hours, we thank you for contacting support. We kind of run you through like, hey, if you need to change your credit card, go here. Hey, if you can't sign into this, here's how you reset your password. And so it really, it's really helpful, I think, for people to deal with like 95% of the issues that we have when we're not open. And so that's another thing that you might want to consider too, is if you notice that you get the same client requests over and over again, maybe put those in an autoresponder so that they automatically go out. And that's really going to help with a lot of your customer service issues, especially if you're closed. So just a tip. So how I work document, super important. And then what is your process? So how do you handle if a client doesn't provide you with the documents you need? What does your process look like? How often do you follow up with them? The way that I kind of like to think about this is if I'm hiring somebody to work for me and I am going to turn over the process to them. Like I say, okay, listen, you are going to be in charge of making sure I get the documents I need from my client so that I can do their work. So therefore, here is the procedure for how you do that. So if by the 10th of the month, we do not have all their documents, what do? Okay, do we send an email? Do we send a text? Do we put up smoke signals? Like, what does that look like for your business? And then, okay, so if we don't hear back within 48 hours, then what? And that's called a standard operating procedure, or an SOP. The more SOPs you have in your business, the easier it is to put your business on autopilot. Because I think a lot of times what happens with small business is that when things start to go wrong, okay, so let's say the client's supposed to have the statements to you by the 10th, and they don't have the statements due by the 10th. Or let's say you're a web developer and you're supposed to have all the content by such a date. We go, oh my God, something's wrong. They don't like us. They're not going to do the website. They don't want to work with us anymore. They don't want to. And our brain starts going crazy. If you have all these procedures in place, you go, okay, don't have what I need. Let me go to my standard operating procedure for a client not giving me the information I need on time. Okay, step one, we're going to send out this email. If we don't hear within 48 hours, then we send out this email. If we don't hear 48 hours after that, we pick up the phone and here's my little script. Okay. And I know that sounds like, you're like, well, that's really cold and that's really systematic, but you know what? It really helps you run your business if you have these things in place. Okay. And it's not going to be something, listen, you are not going to identify all of the issues the first time you onboard a client. You are going to mess up your first contract. Okay. There's going to be things you're going to go, oh, I should have included that. Okay. So next time we're going to put that in the contract. Okay. Because you cannot think of every single thing that has to be in every contract or has to be in every document. Every discovery call you do is going to make the next one better. Okay. And so I want you to think about all this as a learning process. I know it was really interesting. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the woman was saying that we don't really learn in school how to fail and recover, right? We learn everything has to be right and everything has to be perfect and everything has to be an A. And then we get to adulthood and we realize that we don't know how to deal with failure, right? Or we don't know how to deal with when we've done something wrong. And so I think that one thing you have to be really aware of is that you're going to do things wrong in your business. When that happens, ask yourself, okay, what can I learn from this? What can I improve next time? And then say, okay, it's not a failure, right? It's a lesson for improvement, right? So that way next time it's better. And it's really good to learn these lessons early on in your business. So that way when your business is growing, right, you've already learned a lot of these lessons. And that's one thing that those of you in the bookkeeper training school that we're really trying to help you with is, the reason that the community I think is so important is so that you guys can see, oh, I wouldn't have even thought to put that in my contract. Or I wouldn't even thought to ask that in a discovery call, or look at a discovery call that way. So I just want you to really think about these things. So what does it look like to work with you? Now, if you want to stand out from the crowd, a couple things that you can do. If something goes awry, contact your clients immediately. So let's say if you get injured, if you get sick, if you're not going to be able to deliver on time, let them know right away, because clients get antsy when their service providers disappear. And I can say this having been a service provider, having been a trusted advisor for clients who go, what do I do? My virtual assistant ghosted, my bookkeeper ghosted, that's the biggest thing. Service providers, stop ghosting on your clients. Okay. And I know why this happens a lot of the time. It happens because you freak out. Okay. You're like, oh my God, I did something wrong, or I can't get the work done, or I'm overwhelmed, or my kid won't sleep, or whatever it is, whatever. And we go, oh my God, well, I don't want to disappoint my client. So maybe if I just ignore them, and then eventually I'll get the work done. And then you get this anxiety spiral down thing that happens where you are afraid to do the work because you're afraid it's behind, and you don't want to disappoint the client. You don't want to finish the work because then you got to reach out to the client, and then the client's going to go, why is this late? And so you just kind of put it off. I know some of you have done this before, because I hear about this in my inbox. So what do you do? Okay. If you've gotten behind, or if you think you're going to get behind, just reach out to your clients. Okay. Just reach out to the client and say, hey, listen, this is what's going on with me right now. I've got my queue set up. You are, number 5 in the queue. I anticipate I'm going to get your work done by the end of next week. Don't give like a rosy, over enthusiastic deadline. Give a deadline that's realistic. Okay. Because when you do that and you finish before the deadline, you're going to look like a superhero, right? It's funny because my husband always uses the example. When you go to a restaurant and the restaurant says there is a 15-minute wait and you wait 20 minutes, you're going to be pissed off. But if they say that there's a 15-minute wait and you wait 10 minutes, you're gonna be like, oh, cool, look, we're already getting seated. How cool is that? Right? Okay, so really think about the deadlines that you give. But honestly, guys, it is not, listen, in this day and age, it is not hard to be a service provider superstar, okay? Be honest with your clients. Have a really clear process for how you do things and communicate. Like that's all it takes. Okay. Do the work, have processes, communicate. Like that's it. That's it. This doesn't have to be hard, guys. It really doesn't. All right. So let me know if you have any questions about this, especially those of you that are in bookkeeper training school. You can always ask questions. You can go to askkristen.net, and that's Kristen with 2 I's, Kristin. askkristen.net, and you can fill out the form, ask questions. If you're in bookkeeper training school, we'll answer them on our live calls. If you're not in bookkeeper training school, we will use them as podcast episodes or Facebook Lives or other free content. All right, so thank you so much. Thanks for joining us again. I hope that you're having an awesome summer. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Small Biz Mama with Kristen Ingram. If you'd like to learn how to create more margin in your life, please visit us at smallbizmama.com. That's smallbizmama.com.